I purchased this property in Nottinghamshire for £100,000 and it's leased to a social housing provider. They pay £2,000 in rental income every single month. My outgoings is £480 for the mortgage payment and £50 per month for insurance. So that gives me a total of £1,470 every single month in net profit. And unlike other property investors online, I'm going to be real and transparent. Here's a bank statement showing the income coming in from the social housing provider, and here is the lease from the social housing provider. Anyway, let's get straight on to the rest of the video. So I've been very transparent with my property journey, the good, the bad and the ugly. I've tried to share as much as I can. I've been documenting my journey for the last 7 years on YouTube and Instagram, and I've now built up my portfolio to 31 properties. Bear in mind, I started out with less than £10,000. So I've really been through it, guys. So if you're in a situation now where you're just getting started or you're in that building phase of building your portfolio, this is a great video for you. When I started out in property, there was one thing I wanted to know, and that was the numbers. Show me the numbers. In property investing, there's tons of different ways to make money. However, one great way that's worked well for myself and probably my favorite type of property deals in the UK, social housing HMOs in a nutshell is where you take a property, you convert it into a HMO. HMO stands for a house of multiple occupancy. And this is basically a shared accommodation. It's a shared house. You take a property and you rent it on a room by room basis. Instead of renting it as a whole to maybe a family or a working individual, you would rent it to multiple different individuals. So that's a HMO. Social housing is where you would take that HMO and you would lease it to a social housing provider. Now, some of the main providers in the UK, such as Serco or Mears, they can be great options on people to work with, especially if it's your first or maybe your second or third deal. It's definitely worth having a conversation with them and seeing if they can take on your property. With this strategy, we lease it to a provider. They give us a fixed amount every single month. They cover all of the bills, all of the maintenance. They give us a long lease on the property. They cover the council tax. They deal with the certificates as well. It's very, very hands-off. There's actually no management involved from my side. Obviously, I do my checks. I send my team to go there and check every few months to make sure the property is still in good working order and it's all looking nice. But in general, guys, it's very, very hands-off, because one annoying thing about property, managing the property managers, if it's like a normal HMO, can be extremely headachy. It really can. It can be stressful. Whereas with this social housing model, extremely hands-off. And that's what allows me to kind of live in Dubai, if I'm honest with you, is the fact that the business model I chose is extremely hands-off. You can do the same. You know, all you really need to do is just learn, study, become obsessed with learning about this strategy, and you'll be fine. You'll be able to do it. If I look at my total portfolio, there's 31 properties, and it's taken me 7 years to get it to this point. It's been a lot of graft, a lot of hard work. But if I really break it down and I look at the whole portfolio and analyze it, I soon realized that my social housing HMOs really do outperform my working professional HMOs. Okay, now even on paper, when you're running your numbers, the working professional HMOs, they do look on paper like they're gonna make way more money a lot of the time. Do that deal and then you do a social housing deal and you compare the two, you do soon realize that the social housing ones, they do outperform the working professional ones. Okay, now the main reason is because in property, if you have a working professional HMO, so you're renting it to, like, you know, normal working class people on a room by room basis, things crop up. For example, you have repairs, the bills as well. So you have to, you know, cover the bills. So say, for example, they're leaving their heating on 24/7. You, as the landlord, you have to cover the bills. So you're liable to pay for, you know, all of this energy usage. That's another thing. I did mention repairs, but let's just say, for example, with a working professional HMO, someone breaks the door. Okay, let's just give that example. They break one of the fire doors in the property. You, as a landlord, you can try and charge the tenant for that, but what will really happen is most of the time you will end up having to cover that repair cost yourself. You have to send someone out to repair the door. So, you know, that might be £100 to replace the whole door. It might be £200, and that happens every other month. Let's say, for example, that's not really going to happen, but let's just say, for example, you have a few £200 repairs every other month. Now your cash flows down £100 or £200 per month. That's just small examples, but something big could go wrong. Let's say, for example, you have a plumbing issue and you have to get your build team out to cover the repair as well. That's going to cost you more money. All of these things and these examples, they do actually happen, guys, to be honest with you, in the working professional HMOs, and it does get annoying. Things like leaks from a shower, from a sink, that kind of thing, it does happen. It's just general, property usage. Things do crop up here and there, especially when you've got a 6-bed or 5-bed where you've got 5 different tenants in a house. Things are going to happen. Once you really do the numbers, you see that with the social housing ones, the fact that you don't have to pay for the repairs, get involved with the repairs, pay for the maintenance, get involved with the maintenance in terms of you don't even hear about it. They just crack on and do it. And then when I send my team out to go and view these properties to make sure everything's good, my team come back and say, look, it's fine, here's the photos, it's looking good. These are things that we have to consider, guys. Now, one other thing to keep in mind as well, guys, is that I purchase properties most of the time with a joint venture partner. So my joint venture partner would fund 100% of the deal. I will do all of the work from finding the property, managing the renovation process, leasing it to the social housing providers using my connections with the providers, basically just making sure that we don't lose money and making sure that everything's smooth and they've got a safe investment property. That's what I do. I bring my expertise, my hard work, my team. We just make stuff happen and we do deals. That's how I normally structure the deals, and we do split the profits 50-50. So keep in mind, guys, that the first example I showed you on this video was £1,470 profit per month. Keep in mind, guys, there is some tax due on that. Now, with property, there are ways to, really work with a great accountant. They'll show you how you can really reduce your tax liability. There's different things you can do, different company structures, that kind of thing. I'm not an accountant and I legally can't give out financial advice, so I'm not really going to speak about tax. But let's just say, guys, the profit, £1,470 per month. Me and my joint venture partner would split that money. Okay, £1,470 divided by 2, that is £735 every single month that we will both take. Now it's time for me to be extremely transparent with you guys. I do feel a little bit vulnerable saying this because, you do get a lot of haters online when you put yourself out there, and, maybe I'll get some hate for this, but hey, I don't really care. I'm trying to help you guys. I want to show you what's possible. So for me, I own these 31 properties. Now 4 of them are just me. All the others are me and a joint venture partner. Okay, so I have multiple different partners, and normally we'll own 1 property together or we'll own 2 or 3 together. Okay, profit per month that I make from my property portfolio is £15,000 profit per month. However, if I owned the full portfolio myself with no JV partners, the profit per month would be £27,000 per month. Now, guys, these are figures on average because there are fluctuations in the portfolio. Sometimes it might be more, sometimes it might be less, because things do crop up, such as repairs, maintenance issues with the working professional ones. Okay, let's break down deal number 1. Spent £53,000 on the full renovation to turn this property from this into this. This property, I purchased it, it's in Nottinghamshire. We bought it for £100,000. I bought it with a joint venture partner, and we turned this property from a 3-bedroom mid-terraced house into a 5-bedroom HMO that we have leased to social housing providers. The property, we did go over it at the start of the video, but the income is £2,000. The mortgage payment is £480. The insurance per month is £50. And the monthly profit is 1,470. Now, guys, this is literally the only outgoings I have: the mortgage payment, the insurance, and that's it. There's no other outgoings in the month. That's the power of social housing. They really do take on a property and cover everything. All right, that is why it's such an attractive strategy for investors. Let's say, for example, the social housing provider turned around and gave me the property back. Well, I would just literally run it either on Airbnb, or I'd rent it to working professionals. It would still cash flow, it would still make money. We've obviously, when we was buying the property, we analyzed the deal and looked at plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. Always have to have multiple strategies. Don't just rely on one strategy. Okay, that's the good thing about property. There's multiple ways of making money. So the annual net profit in a year is £17,640, which I get half of that, so I get £8,820. Okay, guys, do some maths. Say for example, you have 10 of those deals, which is very possible. You can do that. Times that by 10 and you've got £7,350. If you own them all yourself, no JV partner, you wasn't splitting the profit 50-50, you had 10 of these kind of deals, you'll be making £14,700 per month. Basically £15,000 per month profit for having 10 of these properties, okay? Now, granted, you do have to come up with the money to really make those investments, you know, the money to do those kind of deals, which is why I work with partners, because they put in the money and, you know, I do all the work and we split the profits. But if you can work out how to acquire these properties, that's what you're going to be looking on. You know, 5-bedroom HMO, it's very normal to be making £1,500 profit per month from one of these houses. That's the first case study. Anyway, let's go on to the next deal. This next property that I want to show you today, this one is a 6-bedroom HMO in Nottinghamshire. I purchased it, I renovated it completely, and it gives me £2,940 in rental income. The mortgage payment on this property is £1,456 per month, and the insurance is £50. And that brings my total net profit in the month to £1,434. Now, I'm gonna show you some screenshots here. As you can see, every single month we get paid the exact same amount, and every single month my mortgage payment is the exact same amount, okay? So remember, I don't have to cover any of the bills on this property, any of the maintenance. It's really hands-off, fully managed by the social housing provider. Now guys, I work with 4 different providers. For security reasons, I can't tell you the names for each specific deal. However, I can tell you guys that I do work with Serco and Mears. They're 2 of the providers that I do work with. They are really good providers, to be honest with you. I'm gonna make an in-depth video on them, how it is working with them very, very soon. Subscribe to my channel to stay up to date for all my videos that I'm gonna drop. Yeah, but back to this deal, guys, £1,434 per month. Times that by 12, that gives me £17,208 in a year, 17 grand a year net profit. Guys, you got to remember, if you just have two of these properties, that would give you £34,000 per year, which I believe is the average UK salary. You make some money, you invest it correctly, now you've got 2 properties that are giving you the equivalent of the UK's average salary, £34,000 per year. In a month, that's £2,868 per month that you'll be getting from 2 properties. So that's just an example. Now, of course, not every deal is going to be as juicy, but these are just 2 very typical social housing deals. This second property here, this is leased to a social housing provider, as I did say, but this provider, they actually house young people that have just come out of the care system. They do pay well, they pay better than the other providers, but they're no longer taking on properties in the cheap areas that I was buying lots of properties in Nottinghamshire. So these things do happen. You have to pivot, you have to adapt. That's a big part of being a property investor, is once things change in the market, you can't just get bogged down and be depressed and be sad and think, oh no, it's all over. No, you don't do that. You just pivot, you find ways to make things work, and then you just go for it. You don't give up. So guys, I could really explain to you a lot of other deals, but I just wanted to give you, 2 brief examples on typical HMO social housing deal. If you do want to learn more on this strategy, HMO social housing strategy, then I've made a very, very detailed, I think it's like an hour and a half video. I'll put it right here. You can click this video, you can watch this. It's very detailed, guys, and I'm really sharing it all on that video. Also, if you do want advanced training, you want me as your mentor, I do have a training and mentorship program. If you click on the link in the description of this video, you can book in a call with my team. They'll run through everything with you, see if the program is the right fit for yourself. But ultimately, you would have me as your mentor, and I guarantee to work with you until you get your first deal. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. I'll catch you next week for another property video.